Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on League Unlock as the power rankings continue for the LCS. And we've talked about 8-5 is an absolute mess, which means number 7 is no exception, and roster changes are no exception. And when a team only changes 2 players, well, that's on the lower end of moves heading into 2020, and that is where FlyQuest sits, and they also sit in search of redemption from a very forgettable summer split when they actually had a decent bit of hype after a successful spring where they finished top 4. They looked great. Santorin was playing at a very high level, and he still played decently in summer, but they come into 2020 after a 9th place finish, and 2 big changes and 2 teammates reunited. Power of Evil and Ignar both come in, obviously formerly of Misfits, where they went against SKT in one of the best series of all time at the World Championship. It's been a few years since they've played together, so who knows if that inherent synergy is automatically going to be built back up. But we have FlyQuest right outside of a playoff spot in the preseason. They could very easily make one of these spots because the 2 changes that they made, and not many teams can say this, were just immediate upgrades. I think Power of Evil is better than Pobelter, although Pobelter is still good enough to be starting in the LCS, and it's ridiculous that he's not. PoE is a slight upgrade there. Ignar is actually a pretty substantial upgrade, I would say, over Wadid and JJ, who both had their little bits of struggles over the last split. Excited to see him fit with Wild Turtle. Santorin and Viper. Santorin, even though they went 5-13, he was still really good in the early game. You see those first blood numbers. They were best among junglers who played more than 4 games. And Viper will continue to develop the rookie of the split. But if they're going to be going anywhere towards playoffs, it's going to come from that bottom lane, and Ignar in particular. You know that he is a playmaker wherever he's been, even when he was on BBQ Olivers, and they were the worst team in the LCK, or one of the worst teams. Shout-outs to our boys from Jin Air. Him and Trick were the only positives on that squad. He continues to love playing those hook champions, Thresh, Blitzcrank, whoever it is. Other playmakers, Rakan, Alistair. He might fit well with Wild Turtle in that bottom lane. There's going to be a lot of fighting going on there, and while he might not be peeling for Wild Turtle, I don't know if he's the AD carry that you're sitting in the backline and peeling for. He's the type of ADC that you're diving the opposing backline with, and maybe that synergy and that playstyle will suit this bottom lane very well for them. And more than anything, they just need consistency. Wild Turtles he was swapping between Wadid and JJ so often throughout 2019 that it became more of an issue, and I'm excited to just see, you assume Ignar is going to be starting every single game for them. So to have that consistent support beside him in the bottom lane, going to be huge for those guys to take leads from the laning phase and carry it into those mid to late game, which is where FlyQuest struggled, because I mentioned Santorin's early game was still really solid, even though they only had 5 wins in all of the summer split. He was still, the numbers were there pre-15. He was getting his laners ahead. It was as they transitioned into that mid to late game that things completely fell apart. So we will see if they can fix a lot of those issues, if bringing in Power of Evil, who historically has always been a fantastic team-fighting mid laner. Maybe that's something that can shore up some of the weak points that FlyQuest had, because Pobelter did take a bit of a dip in the summer split. He looked great in spring, and even early on, things were okay, but he definitely fell off towards the end. And it was the 0-4 start last year. Well, you remember FlyQuest had one of the most difficult schedules to start the year, and they could never really climb out of that 0-4 hole. But you know that the other 3 guys, Wild Turtle, Santorin, and Viper, are going to be looking to redeem themselves from that. And PoE and Ignar, Power of Evil has yet to really showcase that he can dominate North America. This is now his 3rd team that he'll be playing on since he came over from Europe. Optic to CLG, now to FlyQuest. He did look solid on CLG, but the turnaround, a lot of it was not due to him This is his chance to show that he can be and will be an upgrade over Pobelter. And if he can play at a top 4 or 5 level mid laner in the LCS, maybe FlyQuest can be knocking on that playoff door. Well, I think they're going to be knocking on it either way, but if PoE plays better, they can kick that door down and return to that spring split form, because they did. Even though they finished 9th in summer, they got to the gauntlet last year because of how well they performed in spring before getting destroyed by Clutch. But FlyQuest is a team that's kind of always under the radar because they don't necessarily have the star power that a lot of these other squads do. But now all of a sudden, they're a very veteran team around Viper. You saw that 4 of the 5 members have all been to a world championship. They have some MSI experience under their belt as well. So the leadership should be able to help guide them to a playoff spot. Now, there are a lot of other teams that have that same level of veteran leadership. So it is not going to be easy for FlyQuest to finish in that top 6, but they definitely have the talent on this roster, and I like the 2 upgrades that they did make. They should be much better than what we saw in the summer split, but making playoffs is a whole other animal. That's all the time today for League Unlocked. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.